Carl King with the United Press International News Film. We're speaking to Mrs. Max E. Causey, whose husband made nationwide, worldwide news as the first juror picked for the Jack Ruby murder trial. Mrs. Causey, just what were you doing when you received the word, and how did you receive the word?
Well, I was trying my best to clean house, but I wasn't too successful at it. And I had just turned on the television for the 3 o'clock news, and they said then he had been selected.
What did you think when you heard that?
Well, I was very unhappy because I didn't want him to be a juror. Not at all.
Well, what are your plans during the suggested length of time that he will be confined as a juror?
Well, I'm going to be very lonely. His grandmother is going to stay with me, and on weekends I plan to go and stay with my folks to pass away some of the time. And, of course, I hope that we can correspond a little.
How about your children? How many children do you all have?
We have 2 boys, one 5 named Kevin, and Keith, who is 8.
And how do they feel about their father being away from them?
Well, Keith, of course, he's very unhappy because he's never been away from his dad. And our little 5-year-old is retarded, so he doesn't know too much about what's going on.
Well, we understand that your husband won't be too lonely. We've just received word that another juror is selected. Did you hear that?
I heard it about 15 minutes ago, and I'm thrilled to death. Yes, very happy.
So he can have some company.
Maybe they'll start getting him now.
Well, Mrs. Causey, will you be able to communicate at all with your husband?
Well, I have talked with the bailiff, and he thinks there's a possibility that I may be able to correspond with my husband. I hope so.
And what way will that be?
Through notes, letters.
You know, of course, those notes will be censored before your husband receives them and before you receive those from your husband.
Well, I know they will, but as I said before, I believe that bailiff's been in love, too.
Thank you, Mrs. Max E. Causey.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Causey, your husband's confinement as a juror, he will require some certain items, and through the bailiff, we understand, of course, you're not permitted to talk to your husband directly, so this information has come through the bailiff. What has your husband requested specifically?
Well, confinement clothes. And as I stated before, he specifically asked for a red jumpsuit. And I thought, my goodness. But he said no one would see him there, so I'm sending that along with, and he also asked for Billy Graham's book on living letters.
Does he play any type of card games or dominoes?
We play dominoes, yes. We love 42.
Well, he'll have some company now, and perhaps he can get up some good games of domino.
At least he won't get lonesome that way, will he?
Thank you, Mrs. Max E. Causey.
You're welcome.